like by talking differently from other authors and like all these words that he's using.
And also, like they said that they depraved them and talking about after the great vanities. So I guess like they must really did really like harm to them because like they said in the beginning that they killed a lot of them and only they killed like 313 only 313 Indians lived from the killing, and so that means and it was a whole bunch of them before and now it's only 313. They must have been killing them.
Well, I think because it makes it sound like a soft sound. What about you?
Well, yeah, like sort of like the same thing, only like, well, I like sort of think that like it's sort of like the S sound sort of sounds like pretty and like sort of like gets like prettier and prettier and prettier and then like sort of like it's getting like sleepier.
It's not a language. It is a language. That's what I think. Because they communicate each other.
But they don't speak.
So, no matter that the language. If you say that characteristic in a language, you can have words, sounds, and everything. It doesn't have to
That's
a sound.
But they don't have words. They don't say
Yeah,
mama.
that language has many characteristics. And in animal language, some of the characteristics that you said, they are there.
So it's more like facts. So, like maybe a campaign commercial for a president, and they say maybe like, what do you guys think they'll say? Medicine commercial. That could work.
Go into the world and get people to comment about their medications.
That's more like reputation.
Yes, but this is they're giving reasons.
Yeah. Reasons to buy it. So more like
It's also giving reasons why you shouldn't buy it because like it have these side effects and reasons why you should buy it.
So welcome to the course. What we're going to do in this course is to focus on what we call constructive student-to-student language or student-to-student discourse. And I've got a panel of teachers and former teachers to help us kick this off, but I wanted to start by just giving a little bit of introduction to what we're going to be doing today and in this course. The reason why we're focusing on language that students use with each other, this is as opposed to language that students use in responding to what teachers ask of them and so forth. The reason why student-to-student discourse is important is partly because we really believe that students learn best by participating with their peers. So what we're trying to do in this course is to look deeply at how students build on each other's ideas as they talk about academic topics. And in the course, what we're going to try to do is to help teachers listen to what students are saying and to support constructive classroom conversations. And this is sort of becoming, I think, more and more important, especially as many states are adopting the Common Core state standards in English language, arts, literacy, and mathematics, and also focusing on the next generation science standards. A lot of that, as we'll kind of get into our conversation, we'll discuss, focuses on students engaging with each other as they learn their conversation. This really isn't a theoretical course, but I did want to just sort of say a few things about the kind of the theory behind connecting language and using language to support knowledge and content development. You know, I'm what's called an experimental psycholinguist, which is a really scary sounding term. But what an experimental psycholinguist does is, you know, we study the theory of how language and psychology, how knowledge and content kind of come together. And different philosophers, linguists, psychologists have really talked about how they get connected in different ways. And just to kind of show why it is important, why this perspective of student-to-student discourse is really an important one for us to really get our handle on. I pulled out a few dusty books from my bookshelf this morning, and one of them is a book called Aspects of the Theory of Syntax by Noam Chomsky. He's a linguist who was very active. He still is active, but he was very active during the time when I was in grad school. And he really brought the idea of language as being kind of having its own discrete set of structures. And a lot of what he focused on was on structures of sentences. And so, we focused a lot on grammar. So grammar and thinking of language as a set of rules that govern grammar is one way of thinking about it. Right? But a contrasting view, and this is sort of why I think looking at student-to-student discourse is important, is there was also a philosopher of language named John Austin who wrote a book around that same period titled How to Do Things with Words. And how to do things with words really had to do with a perspective on language that said, what's really important is using language to accomplish things, like getting you to, make me a meal, or to get people to open the window, to get people to be quiet. Okay, what we do with language is really what's important, and a lot of that makes us look at discourse, right? The purpose of language and how we, how individuals use language to negotiate ideas, and so this idea of sort of discourse aspects of language has been with us, and people have debated which is the better way. Actually, none of them is the better way. They just offer different perspectives. But in the present day, as we talk about how to incorporate greater student engagement using language to do the content, in the current context of the Common Core Next Generation Science Standards, it really becomes important to try to understand how kids use language with each other in the classroom. A final bit of theory I just want to mention is there's a guy named Lev Vygotsky, who was a Russian psychologist from the 1930s, who wrote a book called Thought and Language. And Vygotsky was really good in bringing some of those aspects of language and thought together, right? And what Vygotsky talked about was how language and thought become intertwined through the experiences of culture and schooling. Right, that language is used is brought together because of the way in which language is used in context, and also that that language is an important regulator of how kids think. So the whole idea of self-regulation, of how we think about our ideas, is a process of internalizing the language that we use in conversations that become part of your inner thinking. Right? So that's really kind of helps bring together both the structure of language and the content together. So here we are in this era of the Common Core, revisiting these very, very old philosophical